Hi, it's Dr. Schiller, and we're in a video series talking about the 7 steps of inner healing and how they show up in the Movement Towards Health program. Because I want you to understand what we do in the program so you can get a sense if you think it's for you or not. So in this video, I want to talk about this word that gets called mindfulness. And I suggest we forget whatever you think you know about mindfulness, because it gets thrown around a lot out there in the popular literature and blog posts these days. Forget everything you know, because it can often be spoken about in a way that's just kind of superficial and shallow, that 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 reveals certain important aspects of mindfulness but misses others. So I want to redefine mindfulness as compassionate, non-judgmental presence. I want to redefine it as an aspect of your own being that you already have. In the Torah tradition, mindfulness is associated with the higher soul, the party that isn't bothered by this world, the party that isn't confused and mixed up by all the stresses and the challenges and the frustrations and the hurts and the pains and the wounds. That there's a part of you that's pure, that's untouched, that is present and loving and caring and wise. And you develop that by practicing, dropping the part of you that is hurt, the part of you that's struggling and efforting and trying to make things happen. The struggling part of us is very important. The analyzing, thinking, trying to make things happen part of us is very important. And it's not to deny the importance of that. But there's this other part of you that a lot of us haven't developed. And that's the part that's truly mindful and present and compassionate. It cares very much about what's happening, but it's not lost in the details. It's not lost in a history of frustrations and hurts and disappointments and anger and wounds and hopelessness and blame and shame and doubt. It's just present and it's loving. If you have recently in your life just met some kind of vulnerable creature, whether it's one of your nieces or nephews or children or grandchildren or a little fluffy dog, and you just pick it up and you care about it and you look in its eyes and you realize, wow, this is so precious, wow, and you smile. And it's like the emotional qualities that come out of that moment are important for sure, but what's even deeper is the presence of just connecting to life in the moment, whether you're connecting to another human being, connecting to a beautiful experience that you have in the world, connecting to your own self, or even connecting to something that's unpleasant and painful. And that latter one is the hard part, right? So there's kind of these 3 aspects of mindfulness. One is being present to what's really good in life and giving your attention to the sweetness and goodness, finding the moments that are good. Because if you're like most people with chronic pain or chronic illness, or if you've lived a really hard life of any way, it's very easy to be focusing on the difficult stuff. We've got wiring inside of our brain and our heart that is biased towards looking for what's not good. And if you've experienced a lot of not good, it's like you're just plugged into it and you're always finding what's not good and you're like, what's coming next? So there's an aspect of mindfulness that's like, okay, stop and pause. You're about to eat a beautiful apple. Look at it, see it, smell it, touch it, feel the texture, contemplate where it came from, that there's 1,000 hours of sunlight in that apple and rain and somebody who cared enough to take care of the fruit. And when you take a bite, tasting it. And there's an aspect of mindfulness which is tasting life, whether it's a piece of fruit that you're eating, whether it's walking down the road, feeling your body moving through space, or a hug, or a beautiful piece of music, or whatever it is. And it's enriching, and it brings pleasure, it brings joy, it opens you to love, it opens you to connection, and that is biologically very good. Especially if you're dealing with chronic pain or illness. It's about cultivating and practicing the biology of appreciation and connection, which is transformative to the pain and to the hurt and the difficult stuff. Okay, so that's one part of mindfulness, is paying attention to all the good stuff and really appreciating it. And the second part is this kind of like mindfulness meditation of just like paying attention to your breathing, or doing a body scan and being present to your body. And that's usually also an experience of appreciating the goodness of your own vitality. Because when you start to feel your breathing, if you start to experience your breathing as if it's just like a wave coming in from the ocean, and you're just experiencing it and being breathed and contemplating a little bit that you're actually receiving vitality and aliveness with each breath. And as you're releasing it, you're like just dissolving out into the ocean. And if you're a person of faith, then what you might want to contemplate is that you're actually being breathed by the source of life, whether you think that's evolution or God or some combination of all of the above. It doesn't matter to me. But the point is that you're tuning in to a sense of just directly experiencing your own vitality. Same thing goes with experiencing your body and experiencing the sensations, the tingling, the warmth, the aliveness of your body as a really important alternative or contrast to experiencing the pain, the difficulties, the frustrations. So those are two on the kind of positive end of mindfulness. Let me experience the goodness. Let me experience my vitality. Let me experience my aliveness. Transformative. And then there's the part that's often overlooked because it's a lot harder, but it's something that we don't shy away from in the program. And I suggest that if you've done some basic mindfulness training, you might not be doing it the same depth that we do it in the program, because what I'm just deeply, deeply convinced of and knowing from my 25 years of inner work and doing this work with people and studying the deep sources of Torah that talk about like what is the universe, why is it created, is that inside everything that feels bad and broken and wrong and painful, there's light. There's light, there's potential, there's benefit, there's opportunity. And it doesn't look like that because the goodness is hidden and the positivity is hidden. And you don't know it, you don't experience it until you crack open the nut. And the sages use language of like shell, like a shell of a nut, and fruit, like the fruit inside the nut. You want to eat a walnut? You got to crack it open. You want to get the juice out of a coconut? You got to crack through the shell. So crack, that's strong language, because it's not about cracking anything. It's not about violence, but it's about bringing that quality of your own mind of compassion and caring and presence to the moment and what's happening, whether it's pain, whether it's a difficult memory, whether it's difficult emotional states that might come up in your life or in the context of meditation, but cultivating and developing the quality of your own heart and mind that's just present to it, that feels it, that witnesses it, that sees what it is, and is also willing to say, what else? What else? Here's this pain, my physical sensation, the emotions that are coming up, the thoughts or beliefs that I might have. I could give you a lot of stories about processes with people. I just sent an email out about this, but this wonderful woman in the rehab hospital, this is just the one that comes to mind right now, who was suffering really bad back pain from cancer treatment and being in the hospital for a while, and she just wanted to go home with her family, but she was so debilitated she couldn't. She's in a wheelchair, she's taking all this Percocet, so she's like wiped out and she can't think and she can't do, and she's going to get stuck there unless we do something different, right? So we just sat together and like I encouraged her to actually feel her pain, to experience it. She's like, okay, it's tight, aching in my back. I said, anything else? She said, it's cruel. Yeah. And I said, and what are you feeling? What emotions are you feeling? She got quiet and closed her eyes, and she looked at me and her eyes welled up, and she was like, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid I'm never going to get out of here. I'm afraid I'm going to be in pain for the rest of my life. I'm going to miss my family. She just like witnessed the fear. And I sat there with her. I said, okay, let's just experience that fear together. And she just looked me in the eyes, and we sat there together. And she felt her fear. And I noticed she was like gripping the armrests of her wheelchair. And I'm like, can you just let your hands relax a little bit? Can you let your arms sit on the armrests? Can you just feel yourself supported by the chair? And I watched her melt into the chair. And I'm like, how are you feeling right now? She goes, doctor, the pain is so much better. I don't know what happened. And so like she went from taking 5 Percocet a day to taking 2, one in the morning and then one right before therapy in the afternoon. And she was like up and going, and all we did was met the fear, right? In any experience, there's physical experience, emotional experience, And then intellectual mental experience, the story, the beliefs, the I'm afraid I'll never get home. I'll be stuck in here, and oh my gosh, my life will be so disconnected. And then the physical sensation of pain, and that's what makes up the pain experience. Most of us, when we meet our suffering, we're in the storm, and it's all mixed up. And you start to bring compassionate presence to difficult experiences. And what happens is you're unpacking it. You're releasing it. You're finding the places where you have more freedom of choice, where you can actually go, well, wait, is that really true? Oh, maybe I can just relax that muscle tightness. Maybe I can let my body relax. Wow, maybe I can just relate to this difficult emotion for a few moments. Because emotions come and go. But when you're resisting it, you're stuck in it. But you just like hold it and release it, and it lets go. And I don't mean to oversimplify this. It's not always easy. It's challenging. It's learning something you haven't done before, perhaps. But that's part of what we're doing in the meditations. That's part of what we're doing in the discussions in the community, is that we're supporting each other in learning to actually be present and be mindful, be compassionate, aware, discerning, without judging. And it's truly transformative. So that's part of what we do in Movement Towards Health. I wanted to say a bit about mindfulness and movement, because that same process of awareness, where your mind just starts dropping into the deeper parts of your experience. When you do that with your body, when you do that in movement, astonishing things happen. So we do meditations in the program that are based on my own anatomic study and osteopathic practice, where we're really looking at how all of your anatomy is connected. You have a living anatomy system. And so, for instance, if you have back pain, and what we start to do, which we do, is first of all, we sit down with anatomy, and I help you seed all the ligaments and the muscles and the bones and the tissues and the fascia, and we go into it in your own mind, going into the anatomic structures that are in the front of your spine, in your throat, the base of your skull, going on down where the organs are all attached, and up the back, all of the muscles, the spinal cord itself, the membrane around the spinal cord. You drop your consciousness into it. You start to feel it. You start to feel your breathing moving through the tissues, and it starts to release. And what you're doing then is you're actually, I've talked in other videos about these sort of protective reflexes where things are restricted. You're bringing your consciousness into these deeper layers of your neurologic system, and you're relaxing it. You're releasing habitual patterns of neurologic restriction that are part of the trauma that you felt. They're part of the wounding, the injury, whether it was physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. You're bringing presence, you're bringing consciousness to it, and that's transformative. Okay, that's enough talk. So I hope this has been interesting. Please leave comments if you have it. Movement Towards Health is a systematic way of applying mindfulness and the 6 other steps of inner healing, and you can get more information by clicking on the link in this video or next to this video. You can also just give me a PM or leave a comment, and I'll respond to it. So thanks a lot for watching. Please share